Good afternoon, folks. My name is Abby Getman-Skillicorn. It's 2 o'clock on a beautiful November afternoon, and we are here to talk about Taste Test 101. So I'm joined by some fabulous presenters. Thank you all for joining. I will say that this is being recorded. Please use the Q&A function on the chat box. We will be sharing out some different resources this afternoon with all of you. And to get things started, I am going to put out a poll to kind of see who's in the audience when we get through just a little bit. So today we have Brianna Ippolito from Acton-Boxborough Regional School District. Brianna, do you want to give a wave for those who are looking in? We have Brian Jersky from Northampton Public Schools in Freshhampton, and then Brianna Jackson from Chicopee Fresh and Chicopee Public Schools. And I would just say it's really great to have the tri-bri, taste testers here as leading experts in Massachusetts who are really executing taste tests on a very regular basis. So thank you all for being here. We will go through a little bit of like why taste tests work. You'll hear from each of these presenters about how development of ideas, student engagement, execution, how feedback is, incorporated throughout their programs, and then we'll have time for resource sharing and questions. So again, thanks for joining us today. This is a little bit of a run through, and as in way of introductions, I want to ask our presenters if you just want to share, what you're, in your role in your school nutrition department, how long you've been there, and how long that role has existed in your school department. So, Brianna from Acton-Boxborough, do you want to start?
Yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Brianna Ippolito from Acton-Boxborough. I'm the nutrition coordinator here. So, my position has existed for 3 years, and I've been in it for 3 years. So, as I was graduating from college, the position was created, and I hopped right in. So, yeah, I'll pass it to Brian.
Hi everyone, I'm Brian Jersky. I'm the farm to school coordinator for Freshhampton in the Northampton Public School District. My position has been around since before the pandemic. However, it used to be part of a nonprofit organization called Grow Food Northampton. Around, I guess, just before the pandemic, it transitioned to a district role. And so I've been in this role for 3 years now.
Thanks, Brian. And Brianna Jackson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Jackson, and I'm the Farm to School Coordinator for Chicopee Public Schools. I've been in my role for a little over 2 years, and my position has been here for almost 10 years. It was one of the first ones in the state.
Thank you. All right, so as I head to the next slide, I'm going to launch a poll. So for those of you who are in the audience, please feel free to take that. That's helping us know a little bit more about who's in the audience. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, Mass Farm to School, we work to strengthen local farms and fisheries by promoting healthy communities by increasing local purchasing and education in schools. And we do a lot of, this is one of the many professional learning opportunities that we offer, certainly virtually, but as well as in person. We will be having some field trip opportunities later in the school year to visit some of the food hubs around the state. We hold a conference every other year, and we work on policy and advocacy around the state that really supports and strengthens farm to school education and procurement. So thanks for those of you who are here. And prior to I've been with Mass Farm to School about 1.5 years, and before here, I worked for Springfield Public Schools, where I executed over 200 taste tests in my role as the student engagement manager for the school district, working in conjunction with food service to provide a more student responsive menu for the Springfield Public School students. So thanks all for being here. Brianna from Acton-Boxborough, do you want to share a little bit more about your food and nutrition department?
Yeah, so here in Acton-Boxborough, our mission really aims to serve high quality and nutritious breakfast and lunch meals for our students to ensure that they're well fed and ready to learn. So if you ever see our van driving around, that is on the back of it. So our mission there, and I'll pass it to Chicopee.
Oh, you're on mute, Brianna.
Wow. Chickpea Fresh is our farm to school program as well as our school lunch program. So there's a lot of overlap between the two of them. And we strive to serve both healthy and appetizing school meals, finding that balance between what kids really want to eat and adding lots of fresh components to those. Sourcing 15% of our food from local farms with the hopes to always expand that number, and providing students with fresh, high quality meals. And Brian.
So Fresh Hampton is our nutrition services department. Within that, we serve all of our students all their meals, and we also do farm to school programming. Our big thing is really is engaging students and giving them choice and voice, so they're able to have a say in what they're eating for school breakfast and school lunch.
Thank you all. Awesome. So I'm going to share the poll as far as who's in the audience. So it looks like, oops, so sorry. So it looks like there are a lot of folks who have either been taste testers and who have executed taste tests before, and the vast majority of you in the audience today are from the food service and nutrition departments, with school nurse representation also here. So for those of you, I think that especially hearing most of you are from the school nutrition departments, I think you really already come in with an understanding that a lot of taste tests are definitely happening. It's definitely a thing that is really promoted in the school nutrition, atmosphere around the state and certainly around the country. Some of the reasons why we really believe taste tests are so useful in school nutrition programs is because it can help provide transparency. It builds trust, not only with you and your students, but you within your staffing teams, and you with your administrators and other professionals in the school community who may not always be down in the cafeteria to see what's happening. If they hear about the taste test or have the opportunity to really try your offerings, we're all experiential learners. And so that opportunity to taste something that is delicious and fresh or different that you're trying to expose students to or add to the menu goes a really long way in building those bridges within school communities. They foster really positive relationships. I can't tell you how many times I heard, students, staff, et cetera, say, ooh, like, what are we sampling today? Because it's in schools all too often the day is really rushed, and the opportunity to allow a little bit of individual feedback or a little bit of personal license in what can be informing school nutrition menus is really well received. And I also just loved the opportunity to grow adventurous eaters, because when you do a taste test on a regular basis with student populations, you're really, the kindergartner might not try your taste test the first couple times, but by the time, if they're getting that, taste test opportunity monthly, by the time they're in fifth grade, I saw all too often students were eager to try, eager to share their feedback. And it was really helping improve the, how food services could really serve students the best meals and the most culturally responsive meals that we could for our students. So they're excellent opportunities for student engagement, staff relations, and program marketing. You can get some really beautiful photos, and there are nice ways of incorporating students in the process. As you can, you might not be able to tell, but this was a student poster that was designed to make sure that it was both in English and Spanish in one of the schools that I used to work with, and the reminders of don't yuck my yum, as far as really encouraging adventurous eating and respecting different people's tastes and preferences are really fun. So I will hand it over to Brianna from Acton-Boxborough.
Hi, everyone. So you're probably sitting here thinking, I haven't done a taste test before, or I've seen taste tests, but I want to do one. Where do I start? So because my position was new when I first started, I kind of had the way to pave what I was going to be doing within the district alongside all of the nutrition stuff, of course. And one of the first things that I started with was joining the Harvest of the Month program. And I found through that it made it kind of easy to start taste tests because, if we wanted to introduce some new fruits and vegetables or dairy or things of that nature along the calendar to the kids, we had to find a way to do it in, serving sizes prior to adding it to the menu. So after joining the Harvest of the Month program, I started to look for recipes. So there's so many different places that you can find recipes online for schools. You can use the Mass Farm to School website. The Chef Ann Foundation has some great opportunities for recipes, as well as healthyschoolrecipes.com. I found a bunch through all of them. And then once I kind of had recipes, it was basically just a trial and error process. So not all taste test methods work the same at each site, which I found out very quickly. So the picture to the right kind of shows one of our elementary schools, and I'm able to set up where the kids get their silverware. So they can't walk by me if they need a fork or a spoon. So it works great at that district, that school in our district, but at a different elementary school, that might not be the case. So it's kind of just trying to figure out what works best for you through each school. And then to find local produce, you really can do it in a multitude of ways. We use two different food hubs in Acton-Boxborough. We use Boston Food Hub, which is out of Acton actually, so they're right down the street from us. And we also use Worcester Food Hub. So anytime I'm ordering produce, I kind of look on there to see if there's anything interesting and we might want to turn it into a try day for the kids. And then also you can use DoD produce too, because a lot of the time some of this produce actually is local. And why not use some of your funding from the government to kind of support this tri-day experience? So in terms of supplies, you can really use whatever you want. For me, I use trays, 2-pound boats, which are like the smaller ones, 2 or 4-ounce cups. So the 4-ounce cups are what you're seeing in the picture to the right. And then, of course, you have to have your stickers. So on the USDA's website, they offer lots of free stickers. So I have Make Today a Try Day, which the kids love because it kind of fits with the signage that we've created. And then you can do lots of giveaways that are also free stuff. So I've worked with the Dairy Council and they've given us like free little cow stress ball type things, which work. Or we've gotten like little stuffed animals of fruits and veggies from the cool school website that you can trade points in for things. So that's just some of the ways that we can help get the kids interacted in these programs at the school. And then finally, marketing materials, you can just go on Canva and search for all different types of promotional posts that you can do, whether it's social media or signage. And it's actually a pretty simple website and app to use. So that's what we do for marketing. And then the next slide. So in addition to doing taste tests within the department, you also can bring in people from outside the food services department. So we do this a lot in Acton-Boxborough. So you can do this to tie in the Harvest of the Month through vendors. So for example, the top right photo is Chef Andrew, and he has this product called Seaweedish Meatballs. So they're made from seaweed. I believe it's harvested in Maine, so it's local. And we did this taste test last year during May as the Harvest of the Month kind of shout out. And the kids really enjoyed him. He came to talk about where the seaweed comes from, how it's good for the environment. They really enjoyed this. So that was something that we could use an outside vendor to do for a taste test.
And just to interrupt, Brianna, sorry. So Chef Andrew is from North Coast Seafood. If any of you need contacts, let me know. I'm happy to introduce you. Fun fact is that he is married to a school nutrition director, so deeply, deeply committed to more nutritious and exciting options for students to have in schools.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to give him a shout out. He was fantastic and he's very intertwined in school food, which is super cool. But you can really bring in any types of vendors. So he has, these seaweedish meatballs that he does, but there's also hot sauce companies that are local, or it doesn't even have to be local. So Deeply Rooted is a company that some of you may use. And then we also get a local bagel. So that's kind of all the different companies we've done. But this is just another great way to optimize some student intern help if you have that as well, or just bringing in some other people to give them some promotion for their products and to do something fun for the kids. So next slide. So in terms of setting up for taste tests, like I mentioned before, it's probably going to be different at every school, and you just kind of have to figure that out. So you might ask yourself, does it work better on the line, or does it work better in the cafeteria? So the bottom picture here is actually some mini acai bowls that we tried during school breakfast week last year. And we put them in our salad bar because we thought it would be better if it stayed nice and cold, and that way the kids could grab it before coming out of the line. But at some of the elementary schools or the junior high school, I'm in the cafeteria and that works better. So it's really just what works best for you. And then you might want to think about staff involvement. So is anyone in the kitchen helping you put this together? Is it on you? A lot of the times when I'm doing these, it's usually me and our student interns that kind of put these together. Sometimes our staff are able to do their own mini taste tests as well. But in terms of our district, it's me usually and an intern. And then however many servings I decide to make for the day, I always pre-fill them on trays. That way they're ready to go. So if I need to grab more out of the refrigerator or the warming oven, whatever it may be, I can grab them real quick and bring them to the caf or put them on the line. And ultimately, the students are excited to see something new. So if you need to adjust your plan to see better results, absolutely go for it. You know, sometimes I'm doing something and it's not really working. So the next lunch period, I'll just change it and they don't know the difference. So yeah, you can just make it work for you. And then in terms of student feedback, because I'm a registered dietitian, I always want to make sure that kids are having a positive attitude when it comes to food. So I don't have them say, I didn't like this, but more so frame it as maybe next time. Because, you know, as many of you know, students need to try things up to, 20 somewhat times before they might like something new. So it's kind of important to show them that if they are going to try it again, that is okay. And it's also important that when you're keeping track of feedback to make it something that's easy. So I got those poster boards at the dollar store and I just put a new piece of paper on them every time we do it. I know some people have some more nicely done things, but that was just a easy way to start our program. So yeah, we use tally marks and it works great for us. And there's no such thing as a failed taste test. So even if you do something and the kids aren't a huge fan of it and there's a lot of check marks in that maybe next time category, it's still a win because you got that many students to try something new that they wouldn't have before. So with all of that, even a taste test can be part of nutrition education. So you have them for that split second. You can use them for those small teachable moments, whether it's giving them a recipe card or some educational sheets. Or if you have the Mass Farm to School program, you might get these little trading cards. And our kids actually love to collect these and almost like Pokemon cards. Like they just like to have them all in their backpack. Our managers will actually request that we send more to them so they can have them for the kids. So this is just another fun thing that they have that intertwines the program. And then next slide. And then finally, in our district, we really just aim to make it a fun experience for the kids. And because we're doing taste tests, that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to end up on the menu. So I kind of have two examples of this here where the kale salad recipe that you're seeing, the bottom picture, was a taste test that we did. And the kids actually liked it so much, we put it on the menu, which is what you're seeing with the pizza slice. But sometimes you can also just do taste tests just for fun, and it might not be something that you get again. So we had the opportunity to get Asian pears from one of our food hubs, and they're a little bit more of expensive product, but we still wanted to do something fun this October for the kids because it was pear month. So we decided just to cut some slices up and let them try it. That might not be something that comes back to the menu again, but it was just a fun day to get into the cafeteria and talk to the kids about the Asian pears. So really, taste tests can be whatever you want them to be. They're super fun for me and for the kids. So ultimately, whatever you decide to do with the taste tests is up to you. And it's a great way to introduce kids to new things.
Thanks, Brianna. And before we head into Brianna Jackson's presentation from Chicopee, just want to remind folks, we have a couple of things in the chat as far as resources for you, including our events calendar, but 2 different kinds of taste test guides, both from Vermont, our colleagues in Vermont, and from Food Corps. So those are available to you, as well as if you have questions, please pop them into the Q&A and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation today. Thanks. Brianna Jackson.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to try to not repeat a lot of what Brianna said because we do have a lot of similarities between our programs, and you'll see with Brian too that we all do a lot of similar things. When Chicopee first started doing taste tests, we had food corps members in the district, and so that food corps guide was kind of the foundation for a lot of the work that we were doing. And then in working with the Harvest of the Month, it's always a great opportunity to showcase what Mass Farm to School is doing, and to just kind of like have a new seasonal product that you can kind of use as your fodder for different recipes and different ideas. So for when you're starting, in addition to some of the logistical ordering things that Brianna had mentioned, I had put these are like reflection questions and things to think about. So people do taste tests for lots of different reasons, that the showing like any sort of positive thing you can do for the cafeteria is always just, it's a good reason to get out there and do it. But also, are there different products you want the kids to be exposed to? Is there something specific about the food that you'd like to teach them? And then what do you want to showcase? Are you doing something with one of the harvests of the month? Do you have another cool local product or a vendor that's reached out to you that you could make a recipe and get some feedback on? Or just different things, that something you might want to try out for the menu and kind of work through a recipe at a larger scale, either with someone in one of our kind of like helper kind of roles, or working in the cafeteria staff to see how labor intensive something is. And what do you know about your audience? So I do taste tests at all of the schools in our district. We have about 6,800 students, and there's 15 different schools, and each school has a very different vibe. So what do I know about how like taste tests generally go at these different schools, the physical space where you're planning to be, and that can inform, as Brianna was saying, whether you're gonna have a table, whether you'll kind of bring a card out. Sometimes I'll just do like a half sheet pan and kind of walk around with different samples. So what do you think might work best for the space and the audience you're working with, whether that's like middle or high school students, which may have a little bit of a different like approach, or the way they communicate is very different than an elementary student. So kind of being prepared for that, and who will be helping you. So do you have any vendors coming, or are there community partners? We've done taste tests with Project Breads on staff, like nutrition chefs, and we've also worked with the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts as nutrition coordinators that have come in and helped out with these tests. So are you going to be kind of on your own? Are you inviting somebody in? And just kind of have like a general feel for that. Next slide. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts because I absolutely love working in Canva. And if you are affiliated with the school, definitely check out Canva for educators, because you get access to a lot of different things that go kind of beyond the general basic account that you get set up with, and you don't have to pay for it. So there's a few things you can do to kind of start doing taste tests and kind of get the word out. So you could reach out to different principals and let them know that you'll be coming and what you'll be showcasing. I don't really do this. I haven't tried doing it yet, but the staff loves being included. The office staff always wants to try, and some of the principals love like making it a point to come to the cafeteria to either kind of help like announce your presence and kind of show the students like this is kind of a teaching thing that's going to be going on. So the more you can make it a community event, the better. Different signage. So sometimes I'll have signs on the sample cart, or you can put a signage on the lunch line, or kind of tape it to the walls, so that students kind of know a little bit about what's going on. I've tried doing handouts too, in addition to materials from Mass Farm to School, like the cards that Brianna mentioned, and different like I tried it stickers are always really great to have. I've tried kind of designing my own. I made a zine for the middle school students where there were different activities and recipes, and it was all like a one pager that you folded, and it ended up being kind of logistically difficult. It requires a lot of prep and a lot of folding time, but the kids really liked it. They were very, very popular, and so maybe that's something that you do as like a raffle, or you hand out a couple, who knows. And yeah, different table decor, stickers. Even high schoolers like stickers. And if you have stickers and you have high schoolers, maybe have somebody man your sticker table so nobody walks away with your stickers, because that's happened. And so as far as just like general communication goes, definitely reach out to the kitchens where you'll be going to as early as you can. I do kind of more monthly because my availability on Fridays when I generally do these taste tests is always kind of up in the air. And then we have a lot of Friday half days. So planning as far out in advance as you can, the date, what recipe you're going to be doing, any allergens you foresee, and kind of trying to reduce those also in your recipe design is something to think about. But if there's anything that's like absolutely essential for the recipe, let the staff know, and I'll usually send a link or a copy of the recipe with the email. Any pantry items, so things you think you might need that either could be ordered with like canned or frozen things, or different spices. Just don't assume that it's necessarily going to be there, because every kitchen spice selection is very different. What time you plan to be there? I have a slide coming up that's going to talk about the different timings and kind of planning that out, because I like to have everything, at least a good general idea of that. But so then they know when you're going to get there, and whether you have any special guests, like any vendors or those community members I had mentioned, if there's anybody else coming. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. Recipe selection. This part's always really fun. And it's fun year to year, kind of switching up what you do with each of the harvest of the months, if that's kind of where you're going to start with taste tests, or how those are going to kind of drive your programming. Mass Farm to School has tons of resources for harvests of the month specifically. And on the right is from Project Bread. They also have lots of recipes for different sides, and even like main meal ideas you might want to try in like a 2 or 4 ounce cup to see how the kids like those. You can also just like type something into Google, or if you have kind of a general idea, to get more of a recipe, and at least like what the home cook times are, and how that might go, that you can try to adapt to your kitchen. And yeah, so picking recipes is super fun. Next slide. Okay, so ordering ingredients, that's part of my job. That may not be part of everyone else's job, but when I go to order ingredients, I want to make sure that I'm ordering enough at least for the day. And if it's depending on the quantities of things, if it's something that we might have some leftovers, then kind of my plan for getting those from one school to the next. And the way I do it, and kind of scaling these up, you can always ask me questions about this after, but I'll take this kind of at-home recipe. So it'll say, you know, it serves 6 and it takes 5 pairs. And so if like kind of guessing based on what the picture looks like, or if it says like about how much the one serving would weigh, kind of like scaling that out. And if you think you're going to do like 2 ounce samples, then you can figure out how much stuff to order. And week to week, you may end up tweaking some of that, because the scaling isn't always like exact if you're doing an at-home recipe versus some of the Project Bread recipes and some of the Mass Farm to School recipes have been tested at these larger scales. And so you'll probably still need to scale those down based on what it would call for if it's for like 100 full servings. But you can do math in Excel. This is a Google sheet that I use a lot. Next slide. Okay, pre-planning. So planning is very important. I think you only really have a very finite amount of time when you're actually at the school. So the more that you have figured out ahead of time, the better. One of the first things I think about, well, maybe not the first things, but something I do think about is, what am I going to wear? So I'll try to wear something that like has a Chickabee Fresh logo on it. Today I've got my Chickabee Fresh tie-dye on. or like a hat or something. I try to dress like a cafeteria worker would dress, so baseball caps and things to kind of like comfortable shoes are really important. But you want to like identify yourself as somebody who's kind of aligned with working with the cafeteria, and also just like a fun adult with samples. And so what additional things are you going to pack that you won't necessarily have at the school? I know Brian's going to have a big long packing list, so you can look at what he listed for that. But sometimes like there'll be special things, like I have my immersion blender. Some schools don't have one, and it's really helpful for soups and things. So any special like kitchen equipment, or the signs you made in Canva, or any like fun decorations, things you got at the dollar store or Amazon that can kind of zhuzh up your sample table. The roles and responsibilities of whoever's assisting with the taste test, that's probably going to change based on lots of different factors. But to have kind of a general plan of how long it will take to kind of make everything, and how you will kind of get like who will be doing what, and how to get everything out, and like refill samples if it's a larger school. I know at the high schools we really do need somebody who's like running out samples, and kind of like you can't just have one person at the table necessarily the whole time if you have tons of people coming for samples. So having a general idea of that. What time are you going to get there? So this is my somewhat chaotic spreadsheet. So we have these 15 schools in the district, and I want to try to get to each school at least twice a year. So this is from last year, and some of the ones with dashes I did go to a second time, don't worry. But knowing what time the lunches start, because in our district they don't all start at 11 or anything like that. They really vary, and I know like two of the middle schools are really, really early. So if I'm going to one of those places, I got to get there like probably before 9, because it usually takes me about 2 hours to get through everything I need to do in the kitchen. And to know like how many lunch waves there are. If you can have that somewhere as like a cheat sheet, it can be really helpful, especially if you have a lot of schools that you're going to. And how to keep samples at temp. So if you're serving something cold, like Brianna had mentioned, using the salad bar is such a great idea for something like that, and an idea that I will definitely steal. But also like if it's something warm, is there space in the warmer? I usually go on Fridays because that's our pizza day, and it's pretty straightforward, and the staff has a lot of things prepped already. So my presence there is less of an issue, and the kids are already so excited for the weekend that being there on a Friday, it works out really well for everyone. So is there space in the warmer, or is it possible you could maybe like kind of batch cook or stagger some of the like trays if you're cooking something warm, so one's warm and then one's kind of coming out of the oven as you're finishing up the other one, stuff like that. Next slide. Tips for successful taste tests. So first off, you want to have fun. If you can't tell, you want it to be fun. And I think that like having a plan is super helpful, but there's always going to be uncontrollables. So, you might get a case of pears and you're expecting everything to go great, but they're kind of rock hard. So you're not totally sure how they're going to bake in the time frame that you have. Or like something doesn't come in, or maybe the kitchen accidentally used your stuff and you like are missing certain ingredients, or you thought there would be a spice and there just wasn't a spice. Lots of things can happen. So you want to just try to keep it as positive as possible, because even if you think something is like not going to plan, it can be turned into an education opportunity for the kids. So just keep it positive. One thing that's important is definitely asking for help from the kitchen staff. They know where everything else is. So when you need something, just ask. But I say within reason, because, like you want to try to maybe only ask the same question once and try to remember the answer to it. And also be respectful of different breaks that the staff has, and other things that they're working on, because they're trying to get meals out to hundreds of kids. We talked about like flexibility and communicating with everyone about allergens. So my mom's a school nurse. We have a nurse in the chat. I love that. So you definitely just want to be open with everyone. The head cooks will have a list of all of the allergies. I don't necessarily always get them in advance, but during the day of, I'll know like each lunch wave, which kids that I should probably avoid having the sample, or if we're just not going to do any blue trays, which are the ones for students with allergies, like kind of have that communicated with the kitchen staff. And certain schools, the school nurse will come down too, and we'll have a conversation about that. So just try to keep everyone safe. And there's certain things that can kind of react with certain allergies. So while you don't have to be an absolute expert in cross-reactive allergies, it's something that's nice to like look up and to be prepared for, because like taste tests, we want to have a good time, like we all want to have fun. But if you have issues with allergies, which I think kind of comes with doing taste tests, unfortunately, you want to try to minimize those as much as possible, so that you can continue to have this like positive impression of taste tests. So just be safe. Talk to the kids. I love like sitting down at the lunch tables and actually asking them questions. Sometimes we do more of a poll, but a lot of times if it's just me, it's more kind of an informal sampling and trying to kind of capture like what the general impression was. And take lots of pictures. So you may not know necessarily the school's social media policy, but you could probably reach out to the principal if you really do want to post faces. But I'm a big fan of the fun emoji over the face trick to kind of not post faces. Next slide. So what did you get out of this taste test? This is a video that we did when we had a special guest come. The CEO of Project Bread, Aaron, came to one of our schools. So we used the stickers on the chart method of taste testing, and we published our results on our social media account. And we also did, I think they did like a little bit of an announcement at the school too after. So definitely sharing photos is great. Any changes you're going to make to the recipe before your next taste test, because sometimes like it just doesn't go the way you thought it was going to. So how are you going to tweak it? Is this something you're going to put on the menu? Like Brianna said, sometimes these taste tests are more for fun, and sometimes it's more you really need that feedback to know if it's going to be a popular menu item or not. And talk to your food service director. So if there's a recipe that the kids really like, let your food service director know, and maybe share the recipe that you tried with them, and figure out what your next steps are going to be. That's it.
Thanks, Brianna. Now for Brian and Fresh Hampton's strategies.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I've kind of tried to keep my notes very pragmatic and practical here. We're a pretty small district. We have 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. We mainly do taste tests at the elementary school. By we, I mean I. And so I'm able to get to all of the elementary schools. We do a taste test every month. So at the beginning of the year, I'll sit down with our food services director and basically map out what those dates are going to be. Here's a little kind of screenshot of what that chart looks like. We also use the harvest of the month as our guide, although we've moved some things around based on what we might be serving that month, or what just kind of fits our needs. You want to keep in mind half days. You obviously don't want to schedule things when there's going to be a lot of students maybe doing testing or out for field trips or holidays. And once we do that, I'll send that schedule to the principals, make sure there's no issues, and then we're off and running for the year.
Brian, I love that you got double booked to do open houses this year.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Actually, we decided to do the open houses as our first taste test this year. We wanted to be at the open houses for the past couple of years, but there are a number of roadblocks. So we finally were able to do that this year, and it was really cool because the students recognize me honestly throughout the community as like the taste test guy. I'll see someone at a park or at the store, and they'll look at me and kind of tell their parents. So that's fun. But at the open houses, they were able to show their parents how to do a taste test, what it's like. So I'll get into that process in just a minute. So our second step is then we start to plan out what the recipes are. So like I said, we start with the harvest of the month. We also think about what our goal is. Is it to have a new menu item, or is it just to expose students to some, to a new type of food, like a squash, for example, which is what we're doing this month. Um, if we're putting it on the menu, we want to think about what that preparation is like for the cafeteria staff. We also need to think about the prep time for us as we're prepping these taste tests, any serving challenges, allergies, of course. Next slide, please. Oh, Abby. Oh, thanks. And then we start to, once we have the recipe, we'll start to source the ingredients. So we're generally trying to source our kind of main hero ingredient as a local item. So we'll talk to local farms that we work with. We'll talk to some of our distributors. One that we use a lot is called Marty's Local, and they have most of their items are local. Not everything though, so you'll want to double check if that's what you're aiming for. And then we'll also actually try and mix that with DoD or government or kind of commodity ingredients. So it's kind of a realistic, what a realistic tray menu would look like, because the truth is we're not using 100% local in every meal. We're trying to mix and match to do as much as we can. And then, so once we have the ingredient source, then we'll get our marketing material designed. We have our own harvest of the month flyers. Now they have their own templates, which is fantastic. We made these before those were around. We'll do a recipe card for the taste test day. So this is on our table, so students can see what the recipe is, how it's made. But also a lot of the grown-ups, the staff, they want to see what's in it. They might take a picture so they can make it at home. We'll then also create a recipe card for social media. And so that will be just a bit more fun, also using Canva, as Brianna said. Yeah. Next slide. Materials. So yes, I do have a laundry list of materials. I actually have my bin behind me here. So this is my trusty bin here, and it has all of these things in it. It has a branded tablecloth. You can see everything on the slides here. It has voting blocks. We use little squares that you'll see a picture of in a minute. I can just show you. Here's all of our squares. We have voting baskets, the I Tried It stickers. We also have used the Harvest of the Month cards. The kids love to trade those. And then just things you might need: scissors, tape. We use small chalkboard signs, chalk. We have a sign that we take to anytime we do a taste test. That's one of the photos here. Gloves, trays, all the basic things. Some of the schools I know that I need a table, so I'll bring one with me. Other schools, I know they have a table, so I don't have to bring one. As you heard earlier, each school is different, but this is our main setup in this picture right here. This is what most of them look like. Some schools we have to modify a bit. Execution. So we generally will prep and cook the week of. If it's something that we know we can freeze, we'll do it the week before. For example, we're actually in the midst of taste test this week, and we're doing a butternut squash and apple bake. So this is more of like a dessert type of thing. We cooked it last week. We refrigerated what we are going to use this week, and then we froze what we're going to use the following week. We always let the school know that we're coming. I remind the principals, and then we also remind the cafeteria staff. And we let them know if we need any oven space or any prep space. We want to make sure that everyone's working together. When I arrive, the first thing I do is start to warm up that food. I usually get there about an hour before, start to warm food up if it needs to be warm. Then I set up my table, and then students start coming in. All students, as you heard earlier, again, all the schools are different. Some schools, the students will come right in. They'll come straight to me. They know the drill. They'll grab a cup, take it back to the table, take a taste, and then they come back up and they vote. We always do voting because it's just a fun way to engage the kids. So we have baskets, again, that you see in just a minute, and they can vote on if they loved it, if they liked it, or it used to be tried it. But some of the students suggested that we change tried it to not for me. And so we did that. Again, student voice and choice. Um, we some schools, the tables have to be excused one at a time. Some schools, generally with the kindergartners, will have to walk around and hand out samples. So we know how it goes at every school, and so we're kind of ready to go once we get to each school. Feedback. So here's a picture of our baskets with the voting box in there. We count the votes. The kids always want to know who the winner is or what verse, not for me. So we'll send a recap with votes and photos to the principals to send out in their newsletter. We'll also post it. We have our own Fresh Hampton newsletter that we send out, and then we also post it on social media. And we have a platform in Northampton that we use called Parent Square. So we'll use that as well. If it was a winner, then we'll incorporate it into the menu. And if we are incorporating it into the menu, we'll work with the cafeteria staff to teach them how to prep it. Oftentimes we'll help prep it if it's something that's a bit more labor intensive. If it's not a winner, then we won't add it to the menu. And again, sometimes we'll do things that we're not planning to add to the menu. This taste test, these next 2 weeks, we're not planning to add it to the menu, the butternut squash and apple bake. The idea for this one, it's because it's very, very labor intensive. The idea for this one, though, is just to expose students to winter squash. And I think that's all I have. You're on mute, Abby.
Yeah, I think I'm having a slight delay, so forgive me. I'm going to turn my video off to hopefully help with my connectivity issues. But thank you to all of our panelists for sharing about how taste tests run in their districts. As a reminder, if you're part of the Mass Farm to School Harvest of the Month program, we do have a variety of different resources to use for newsletters, social media graphics, and those are in templates that you can customize for your program. And our hope is that at some point this school year, we'll also be hosting a webinar about how to use Canva for your programs. I know that Project Bread and other organizations do a lot of templates in Canva, so I feel as though many of us are familiar with the platform, and there can always be a little bit more information sharing to make sure everyone can do those things as well. So just some examples of what you could have on your, for you to use with your school programs. As a friendly reminder, we have additional workshops coming up this school year, including cleaning your hydroponic system in December, meal costing 101 to really talk about blending your local and commodity foods to make a really robust menu cycle, and then fresh local summer food service in March, when we know everyone's getting ready for the summer food service program. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be having food hub tours later in the spring, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And for now, I will pause my sharing of my screen so that we can look up what the questions are looking like. Brianna had already put in the chat access to 2 different taste test manuals and our events calendar for Mass Farm to School, and our contact information is on this slide. I would also say one of my tips and tricks, I think seeing some of the names of those who are on at least attending this webinar, it will be easy for you to ask, but to make sure that you have available carts in whatever schools that you're going to in the different cafeterias, especially when you're thinking about the space in the cafeteria and how you're, as Brianna Jackson had been saying, like restocking throughout lunch waves. I used to have a couple, I could fit 70 samples of 2-ounce cups on a sheet pan and would have, depending on the type of cart, could have backup sheet pans ready to go if I was allowed to have a designated cart in that school kitchen. And in addition to that, I think the opportunity to communicate and like bring fun to different school kitchens also allows you to keep on top of other programmatic elements that can help improve your program. Like, for some reason, 2-ounce scoops are suddenly missing and we have to add something to the smallwares order. Those kind of opportunities were really helpful in keeping an eye on program functionality, as well as allowing staff to really see the benefit of having extra people in their kitchens, often on busy days. And as Brianna Ippolito mentioned as well, utilizing volunteers or interns. I know a lot of folks use registered dietetic interns, as well as you can talk to, especially your high school programs, about a lot of schools have mandatory volunteer hours. And depending, you can have an application process to kind of vet student interns who might be able to help you execute taste tests, in your school community as well. So those are a few things.
I also wanted to add another little tip. Whenever we have leftovers at the end of each taste test, we'll take it to the staff room, and they're always really, really thankful and appreciative.
Yeah. All right, so I have one question for Brianna Ippolito, if you can share the kale salad recipe that you use. So do you remember where you get it from?
Yes, let me see if I can do a quick Google search and find which one we did.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I would hear when handing a sample to a student or an adult in cafeterias, them being like, "Ooh, it's almost like I'm at Costco," something like that. Because I think the opportunity for a fun opportunity to try something new is it can really spark joy. And I think also allowing students to say they don't like something is a little bit radical, especially at the elementary school level, where they're always encouraged to try it, taking an I tried it bite. And, when we would put forward, like, you're allowed to not like it. We just want you to try it. I think that helped us build a lot more credibility with kids, because all too often they're being told how they should think about a recipe or something. And, if you don't like black beans in your salsa, that's okay. We would totally run into that.
Yeah, we always tell whenever someone is voting in the kind of not for me bin and they're giving kind of a weird look, I always tell them, no big deal. Thanks for being brave, for trying something new.
Yeah.
And there's
We
like
want
a
to
lot of psychology
make it
behind just,
easy for them, kind of remove any barriers.
yeah. And even just like smelling a sample or just kind of like using all of your senses with it, even if they don't eat it, they can, as long as they're like very respectfully put it in the trash and it doesn't end up being a problem for maintenance, like I encourage them to just, even if they just kind of want to like get a closer look at it or kind of be around the sample. It's really good.
Awesome. Are there other questions from attendees that you wanted to ask the panelists today?
So while they're typing questions, we use Healthy Pro as our menu planning software, and it doesn't let you download a copy that looks great to send off to people for recipe. But basically the kale salad was kale, apple slices, orange like peels, wedges from the oranges, and an orange juice dressing. So it was a super simple recipe. I'll try to find the actual one, but I can't download it from Healthy Pro to share into this.
Thanks, Brianna. And I can certainly, the person says, so delicious, sounds delicious. I can put you in touch offline because I have both of your emails. So awesome. Well, I don't see other questions coming up. It is 2:55. We can hang on for a couple more minutes, but thank you all who did come to today's webinar to learn a little bit more about how to execute taste tests in your school cafeteria environments. And if you have additional questions or suggestions of ways to of other topics that you would love Mass Farm to School to cover, please email them to me at abby@massfarmtoschool.org, and I'll put my email in the chat as well. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming today.